Hello, my name is Marcus Chen. I'm 29 years old and I'm sitting in my penthouse apartment in downtown Seattle, looking out at the city lights twinkling like scattered diamonds against the night sky. The Space Needle stands tall in the distance, a monument to innovation and dreams. Dreams. That word used to fill me with hope, but for a long time it only brought me pain and disappointment. Today I received a phone call from my father, the first time he's reached out in over 2 years. His voice was warm, almost cheerful, asking how I was doing if I wanted to come home for dinner. But I heard the real question beneath his words. The question he didn't dare ask directly. I hung up without answering, my hand trembling as I set the phone down on my glass desk. The same desk where I built my empire, where I proved everyone wrong. I'm telling this story not to gloat or seek revenge, but to answer a question I've asked myself 1,000 times. When does ambition become betrayal in the eyes of those who should support you most? I was born and raised in Bellevue, Washington, a suburb just across Lake Washington from Seattle. My family wasn't wealthy, but we were comfortable. My father, David Chen, owned a small accounting firm that he built from the ground up. My mother, Linda, was a high school math teacher, strict and disciplined. My older brother, Nathan, was the golden child, a corporate lawyer at a prestigious firm downtown, everything my parents wanted in a son. Then there was me, the dreamer, the one who didn't quite fit the mold they had carefully constructed. Growing up, I was always the odd one out at family dinners. Nathan would talk about his latest case, his billable hours, his promotions, and my parents would beam with pride. When it was my turn to speak, I'd mention my ideas, my projects, the businesses I wanted to start, and I'd be met with polite smiles and quick subject changes. "Marcus, when are you going to get a real job?" my father would ask, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer would disappoint him. I graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in computer science, not because I loved coding, but because my parents insisted I needed something practical. After graduation, I got a job at a mid-sized tech company, sitting in a cubicle writing code for software I didn't care about. I was good at it, good enough to keep the job, but every day felt like I was dying a little inside. At night, I worked on my own projects. I built apps, created websites, experimented with different business models. I spent every spare moment learning about entrepreneurship, reading books by successful founders, watching videos about startups. I had a fire inside me, a burning need to create something of my own. But every time I mentioned my ideas to my family, I was shut down. "Marcus, you have a stable job," my mother would say, her voice tight with worry. "Why would you throw that away for some risky venture?" Nathan was even worse. He'd laugh, actually laugh, when I told him about my plans. "Little brother, the world doesn't need another app. Stick to what you know. Keep your head down, save your money, and maybe in 20 years you'll have a decent retirement fund." I tried to explain that I didn't want to wait 20 years, that I wanted to build something now, but they didn't understand. To them, success meant stability, a steady paycheck, benefits, a 401k. Anything outside that narrow definition was foolish, reckless, destined to fail. The breaking point came when I was 26. I had been working on an idea for months, a platform that connected freelance developers with small businesses that needed custom software solutions. I called it Dev Bridge. I believed in it with every fiber of my being. I had validated the concept, talked to potential customers, even built a working prototype. All I needed was some initial funding to launch properly. I didn't have much savings, maybe $15,000 that I'd scraped together over the years. It wasn't enough. I needed at least $50,000 to build the platform properly, to hire a small team to market it. So I did something I swore I'd never do. I asked my family for help. I called a family meeting one Sunday afternoon at my parents' house in Bellevue. The house where I grew up, a modest 2-story home with a manicured lawn and a white picket fence. Everything about it screamed conventional, safe, predictable. I sat in the living room, my laptop open on the coffee table, ready to present my business plan. My father sat in his usual armchair, reading, glasses perched on his nose. My mother was on the couch, hands folded in her lap. Nathan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, already looking skeptical. "Thank you all for coming," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "I wanted to talk to you about something important. I have a business idea and I think it could really work." I launched into my presentation, explaining the market gap, the revenue model, the growth projections. I showed them the prototype, the positive feedback I'd received, the letters of intent from potential clients. I spoke with passion, with conviction, pouring my heart into every word. When I finished, there was silence. My father removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. My mother looked at me with something like pity in her eyes. Nathan actually rolled his eyes. "Marcus," my father said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "This is exactly what we were afraid of. You want to quit your job, throw away your stability for this. He gestured dismissively at my laptop. It's not just this, I said, my voice rising. It's my future, it's what I want to do with my life. My mother shook her head. Sweetheart, we love you, but this is irresponsible. What about health insurance? What about your rent? You can't just gamble your life away on a pipe dream. It's not a pipe dream, I insisted. I've done the research, I've talked to customers, this could work. Nathan pushed off from the wall, his expression condescending. Marcus, do you know how many startups fail in the first year? Over 90%. You're not special, you're not going to be the exception. His words stung like a slap across the face. I'm not asking for your permission, I said, my jaw clenched. I'm asking for your support. I need $50,000 to get this off the ground. You back with interest. My father laughed, a bitter sound. $50,000? Marcus, that's not a small amount. And for what? So you can fail and come crawling back in 6 months. I won't fail, I said, but my voice wavered. You don't know that, my mother said gently, and we can't risk that kind of money on something so uncertain. I looked at Nathan, hoping for at least a shred of understanding, but he just shook his head. Little brother, I say this because I care about you. This is a mistake, don't do it. I closed my laptop, feeling like the walls were closing in. So that's it, you won't help me. We're helping you by telling you the truth, my father said. This isn't the right path, stay at your job, be responsible, that's what adults do. I stood up, my hands shaking. You don't believe in me, none of you do. It's not about belief, my mother said. It's about being realistic. I left that day knowing I was on my own. I didn't speak to my family for weeks after that meeting, ignoring their calls, their texts. I felt betrayed, abandoned by the people who were supposed to support me no matter what. But I also felt something else, determination. I decided to move forward with Dev Bridge even without their support. I quit my job, a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. I used my $15,000 savings to build a minimal viable product, working 18-hour days, sleeping on a friend's couch to save on rent. I ate ramen noodles for months, cut every possible expense, lived like a monk. I launched Dev Bridge 6 months later. It was rough, buggy, far from perfect, but it was mine. I hustled, reaching out to every small business I could find, offering discounted rates, doing whatever it took to get my first customers. The first few months were brutal. I made barely enough to cover my expenses. I had to take on freelance coding work just to pay for food. There were nights when I lay awake, wondering if my family had been right, if I was just a fool chasing an impossible dream. But slowly, things started to change. I got my first paying customer, then my second, then my fifth. Word of mouth started to spread. Small businesses loved the platform because it was affordable and effective. Developers loved it because it gave them steady work and fair pay. I reinvested every dollar I made back into the business, improving the platform, adding features, hiring a small team of contractors. By the end of the first year, DevBridge was generating $10,000 a month in revenue. Not enough to make me rich, but enough to prove the concept worked. I still didn't reach out to my family. Part of me wanted to prove them wrong first, to show them I could succeed without their help. Part of me was still too hurt by their rejection. Then in my second year, something unexpected happened. A major tech company, one of the giants in Silicon Valley, reached out. They had been watching DevBridge, impressed by the growth and the model. They wanted to acquire the platform. I almost deleted the email, thinking it was spam. But I responded cautiously, and within a week, I was on a plane to California, sitting in a conference room with executives who saw the value in what I'd built. The negotiations took 3 months. They were intense, exhausting, sometimes overwhelming. But I had a lawyer, someone I hired with the little money I had, and together we navigated the process. The final offer was $12 million. $12 million for a platform I'd built in my friend's living room, fueled by ramen noodles and spite. I sat in that conference room, staring at the contract, unable to believe it was real. I was 28 years old and I was about to become a millionaire. I signed the papers on a Tuesday afternoon. The money hit my account 2 weeks later, minus taxes and legal fees. I was left with just over $8 million. I sat in my new apartment, the penthouse I'd just rented in downtown Seattle, staring at my bank balance, feeling numb. I had done it. I had proven everyone wrong. But instead of joy, I felt empty. I thought about calling my family, sharing the news, but something held me back. I wanted to see if they'd reach out on their own, if they'd apologize, if they'd acknowledge how wrong they'd been. For months, I heard nothing. I saw on social media that Nathan got another promotion, that my parents celebrated their anniversary. Life went on for them as if I didn't exist. Then 6 months after the acquisition, my phone rang. It was my father. "Marcus," he said, his voice warm, almost cheerful. "How are you? We haven't heard from you in so long." I didn't respond, waiting to see where this was going. "We were thinking," he continued, "maybe you could come home for dinner this weekend. Your mother misses you, we all do." "Why now?" I asked, my voice cold. There was a pause. "What do you mean? Why are you calling now after 2 years of silence? Another pause, longer this time. We heard about your success, about the acquisition. We're proud of you, son. There it was, the real reason. They hadn't reached out because they missed me or because they were sorry. They reached out because I had money now, because I was successful, because I had proven them wrong and they wanted to be part of it. I have to go, I said, my throat tight. Marcus, wait! I hung up, my hand trembling. Over the next few weeks, the calls kept coming. My mother, my father, even Nathan. They all wanted to reconnect, to celebrate my success, to be part of my life again. But I knew the truth. If Dev Bridge had failed, if I'd gone bankrupt and lost everything, they wouldn't have called. They would have said, "We told you so," and moved on with their lives. I started a new venture with my remaining capital, a venture capital fund focused on supporting first-time entrepreneurs who were rejected by traditional investors. I called it Second Chance Ventures. I wanted to be the person for others that my family hadn't been for me. I funded dozens of startups. Some failed, but others succeeded beyond my wildest expectations. I became known in the Seattle tech scene as someone who believed in people, who gave chances when no one else would. My net worth grew, not just from my initial acquisition, but from the successful companies I invested in. One evening, I was at a tech conference in Seattle, giving a keynote speech about the importance of believing in yourself even when others don't. The room was packed, hundreds of entrepreneurs hanging on my every word. As I spoke, I saw my family in the back row. My father, my mother, Nathan. They had come without telling me, without asking. After my speech, they approached, smiles plastered on their faces. "Marcus, that was incredible," Nathan said, extending his hand. I didn't take it. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice flat. "We wanted to support you," my mother said, her eyes pleading. "We're sorry we didn't believe in you before. We were wrong." My father nodded. "We should have supported you. We see that now." I looked at them, these people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. "You're not sorry you didn't believe in me," I said quietly. "You're sorry you missed out on being part of my success. There's a difference." "That's not fair," Nathan protested. "Isn't it?" I asked. "Where were you when I was sleeping on a couch, eating ramen, working 18-hour days? Where were you when I needed encouragement, when I needed someone to tell me I could do it? You were telling me to give up, to be realistic, to stop dreaming." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We were trying to protect you." "No," I said, shaking my head. "You were trying to protect yourselves from the discomfort of watching me take a risk. You wanted me to be safe, predictable, like Nathan, but that's not who I am." I turned to walk away, but my father grabbed my arm. "Marcus, please, we're family." I looked down at his hand, then back at his face. "Family supports each other. Family believes in each other. You didn't do that. You only came back when it was convenient, when I had something to offer." I pulled my arm free and walked away, leaving them standing there. I didn't look back. In the months that followed, I threw myself into my work. I mentored young entrepreneurs, invested in promising startups, built a reputation as someone who genuinely cared about helping others succeed. I dated, traveled, bought things I never thought I'd be able to afford. But there was always a hollow feeling, a sense that something was missing. One day, I received a letter in the mail. It was from my mother, handwritten on cream-colored stationery. I almost threw it away, but curiosity got the better of me. She wrote about regret, about how she and my father had been afraid of losing me, of watching me fail. She admitted they had been wrong, that they should have supported me regardless of the outcome. She didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't ask for money. She just wanted me to know that she was proud of me, that she always had been, even when she didn't show it. I read the letter 3 times, sitting in my penthouse, watching the sun set over Seattle. I thought about my grandmother, my father's mother, who had passed away when I was young. She used to tell me to follow my dreams, to never let anyone tell me I couldn't do something. I wished she was here to see what I'd become. I wrote back to my mother a short letter. I told her I appreciated her words, but that I needed more time. I wasn't ready to forgive, wasn't ready to let them back into my life. Maybe someday, but not now. I continued building Second Chance Ventures, watching it grow into one of the most respected early-stage funds in the Pacific Northwest. I found purpose in helping others, in being the support system I never had. But I also started therapy, working through the pain of my family's rejection, trying to understand why it still hurts so much even after all my success. My therapist, Dr. Sarah Kim, helped me see that my drive to succeed wasn't just about proving my family wrong. It was about proving to myself that I was worthy, that I had value beyond what others thought of me. "You've achieved incredible things," she said during one session. "But are you happy?" I didn't have an answer. 3 years after the acquisition, I was invited to speak at my alma mater, the University of Washington. I talked to a room full of students about entrepreneurship, about failure, about believing in yourself. After the speech, a young woman approached me, her eyes bright with determination. "Mr. Chen," she said, "I have a business idea, but my family thinks I'm crazy. They want me to go to law school. What should I do?" I looked at her, seeing myself at her age, full of dreams and doubt. "What does your gut tell you?" I asked. "That I should try," she said. "That I'll regret it if I don't." I smiled. "Then try, and if you need support, people who believe in you, find them. Don't wait for permission from people who are too afraid to dream themselves." She thanked me, her eyes glistening with tears, and I felt something shift inside me. Maybe my pain, my family's rejection, had a purpose. Maybe it made me someone who could help others facing the same struggle. I walked across campus after the event, past the buildings where I'd studied, where I'd dreamed of something more. I thought about calling my family, about trying to rebuild what we'd lost. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. I returned to my penthouse that evening, poured myself a glass of wine, and stood at the window, looking out at the city I'd conquered. I thought about the journey, the sleepless nights, the ramen noodles, the rejections, the triumph. I thought about my family, about the call from my father that started all of this. And I realized something. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had proven to myself that I could succeed, that I was capable, that I was worthy. Their approval, their pride, it didn't matter. What mattered was that I had believed in myself when no one else did. I picked up my phone and looked at the missed calls from my father, my mother, Nathan. I could call them back, could try to mend the relationship. But I also knew that some wounds don't heal, that some betrayals cut too deep. Maybe someday I'd be ready to forgive them, to let them back into my life. But that day wasn't today. I set the phone down and opened my laptop, looking at the applications for Second Chance Ventures' next funding round. Dozens of entrepreneurs, all with dreams, all needing someone to believe in them. I smiled, feeling a sense of purpose wash over me. This was my family now, these dreamers, these risk-takers, these people who refused to accept the limitations others placed on them. I would be for them what my family couldn't be for me. A believer, a supporter, a champion. And maybe in helping them succeed, I'd finally heal the wound my family left behind. If you're reading this story, I want you to know something. Your dreams are valid, even when others don't see them. Your ambition is not a character flaw, it's a strength. Don't wait for permission from people who are too afraid to take risks themselves. Believe in yourself, work harder than you ever thought possible, and surround yourself with people who lift you up, not tear you down. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose to stand by you, who believe in you when you're at your lowest, who celebrate your victories without jealousy or resentment. Find those people, build your own family. And if the people who were supposed to support you didn't, that's their loss, not yours. You are capable of more than you know. Don't let anyone, not even family, convince you otherwise. Live boldly, dream big, and never apologize for wanting more. Thank you for listening to my story.